Clause 1 is a short title. Clause 2 addresses the interpretation of key terms used in the bill: outstanding traffic penalty, prescribed notice, qualifying persons. An outstanding traffic penalty means a fixed penalty pursuant to a prescribed notice, which of course is another phrase for traffic ticket, issued since February 1, 2018, that would have been payable but was not paid within the prescribed time. A qualifying person is anyone who has been issued with a ticket. Mr. President, Clauses 3 and 4 provide for the reprieve granted, and Clause 5 deals with the nullification and expungement of demerit points. It makes provision for the expungement of all demerit points recorded against the licenses of any motorist who has received a traffic ticket and made payment prior to February 1, 23. Clause 6 addresses the nullification of traffic tickets issued before February 1, 2018, for which payment of outstanding penalties have not been made and are now rendered void and of no effect. Mr. President, this bill offers all motorists and who have tickets still unpaid the opportunity to clear these matters from their driving record, and we hope and can see from the numbers that the majority of persons have taken this opportunity and will fall into this category. Mr. President, this allows them, that is those who acted early, those who acted quickly, a clean slate without demerit points when the Road Traffic 2018 is brought into force. I repeat Minister Shaw's call to motorists who still have outstanding tickets to appear before the traffic court, and because at the very least they will be in the start of a process which must be taken in good faith and be part of the consideration of the court given their particular circumstances. If they are having challenges in paying their traffic tickets, they will have the opportunity to indicate their difficulty to the courts to see whether appropriate arrangements can be made with the court concerning payments. This will clearly be more difficult for persons who have many infractions, but this is how they operate. This is how the law operates. And 100 tickets, for example, would not have been accrued overnight. In fact, when I've heard some of the persons speaking online or on the radio saying that, a lot of the tickets that they have gotten, they don't deserve them. And I thought to myself, what if 50% of those were true? What if 50% of the tickets that someone with 500 tickets, what if 50% were, wrongfully received? And 250 were 250 times this person has broken the stoplight, licked people off their bike, crashed into people's car, and then digging off their face till passers-by have to be protecting someone who was wronged from their aggression, even though they were in the wrong, and they have mashed up somebody's car. The people who hit off the painter off of his motorbike without insurance again. He can't work. The bike can't be fixed. His livelihood is thrown away for however many months. These things happen every day, every day. So again, Mr. President, a balance has to be sought. If you don't have many tickets, if you maybe only have 1 or 2 tickets, your matter may well still be addressed in time, especially, as I just indicated, if you're outside the Kingston and St. Catherine areas, where the largest numbers are being presented at court now. But if not, at least you'll be before the court with a process underway. Maybe it will be considered as a sign of good faith, albeit late. Mr. President, I've already described the amendments which took place in the lower house, just for colleagues who had looked at the earlier version, confirming that the change from January 1 to January 31 in 2023 was in the definition of outstanding traffic penalty in Clause 2, and then the reprieve period was also defined to mean the period commencing on February 1, 2018 and ending on January 31, 2023. And Clause 7 was deleted. Those were...
Suggest that in a 4-year period, and I'll get back to this, but just for convenience, 2,371,494 tickets were issued. The Honorable Minister went further to say, of which 1,222,000 approximately were paid. If those numbers are correct, that is a measly 51% and not 71%. In fact, 2 times 1,222,000 will be 2.4 million. So that will show you it is impossible for that to have been 71%. So if these numbers are correct, it's almost 50-50 of paid and unpaid. And so 71 would, in this case, have been a fabricated number. But maybe there's a mistake made in the numbers presented. However, the minister did say she did the math, and so that math would have been incorrect if that's the case. So, yeah, he paid for my extra classes, actually. So, so there must be great conversation if it is that 49% of those given tickets over the last 4 years found it reasonable or reason not to pay those tickets. And as I've always said, whenever there are large numbers of an occurrence, it is often not an individual problem, but a systematic problem. One of the systematic problems that exist is the quarrel that I've heard even on the interviews where people say that they have paid these tickets that are still showing up as unpaid. So there's a system that is almost incapable to be trusted because there are persons who have cleared tickets, whose tickets are showing up as uncleared. There are also persons who have not cleared tickets, who when they go to check, there is no ticket being listed for those persons. But this whole conversation reminds me of a poem that says, first they came for the communist. And I said nothing because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialist. And I said nothing because they were not a socialist. They came for the trade unionists, and I still said nothing. Eventually they came for the Jews. And when they came for me, I said nothing because I was not a Jew. Because there was no one to say anything. This conversation was being held in a very different context when only the taxi men was thought to have a problem. Most people were saying, oh, they are the worst set of people, they should pay. And this whole budget, this whole presentation today was trying to paint a picture that the vast majority of those to be affected were those licking people off bike and driving on sidewalk and doing all manner of evil things. The numbers suggest. Sorry, yes, you're allowed to. I'll heal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just
yes.
because,
unlike
thank you. Yes, so I appreciate it. No, I really do, and I know that you are on the numbers, and I had intended to be correct, and I was convicted, but I had a typo in here, as opposed to on the other note and the report. It's 1.666371, so it's 70.2%. So my apologies.
No problem.
I wrote. It's my typing.
All right, no problem. We just want the maths to be correct.
Thank you. I know. So
look at his face. Look at his face. Yes. But I understand why 1666, the 666 might have thrown off the. She don't want to say that. Yes, I understand. So I'm going to use the 1666, meaning 1,666,000 paid. 371 paid. We should suggest that 705,123 did not. Of the 705,123, because, yes, tickets, I stand corrected. Unpaid tickets, that is how iron sharpen iron, you understand? But 705,123 tickets remain unpaid. I am creating this picture because it was given that the vast majority of who the government is punishing and standing on the side of those who are of good citizenship are those who are habitual offenders, habitual bad people, habitual lick down bike man, habitual box down people after crashing in their cars. The numbers, as I said, don't suggest that because the minister also indicated that 46,000 persons had 106,070 tickets. So 46,000 people had 106,070 tickets. The numbers sound big like Jesus. Then people can drive away. That's really 2 tickets over a 4-year period. 2 tickets over a 4-year period. So the number presented to suggest that these are egregious offenders would have had in 4 years. Yeah, that is the point. That is, well, you see, you're coming to what I'm saying. That these are not... Oh, well, because I'm on my feet, it suggests that I am the louder voice. 500 tickets is what is being purported. One outlier is being used for law. Oh, these people are the worst people. These people could have had no indicator, tail light not working, registration up unknown, display sticker, tint, speeding in an area that it's almost impossible to know because one year is 80 and the next one is 60, right on the edge. They had in 4 years too. This was used as the big negative. There were 45 who had 500 and something. So those 45 people had about 11 tickets over 4 years. They are habitual bad people. But in the numbers that we see have big lines throughout the 13 courts for traffic, singular tickets based on the numbers would be 599,053 people had only 1 ticket in 4 years. So the suggestion that this is being firm and strong against habitual offenders, it is an untruthful suggestion because the numbers indicate that the vast majority that are being affected at this time in 4 years, that between February 1st, 2018 and December 31st, 2022, 599,000, 600,000 would have only had 1 ticket in those 4 years. An additional 106,000 would have only had 2 over 4 years. These are not. But a law and a government action cannot be focused on one person with 75 without appreciating the circumstance of 600,000 with 1 and 102,000 with 2. And then the foundation of the explanation cannot be the 1 and the 45 at the ignoring of the 700,000 that had 1 or 2. It must have been the same way they spoke about the communists when they came for the communists. Because one by one you say, look at him, look at him, look at him, and then don't say, look at us. Now, one of the realities that government must consider is their competence to implement their programs. You see, I don't even drive myself, so I'm safe. I'm safe. But look at what I'm saying here. when a government put in a policy, they should be able to effectively implement that policy. It's not a hard and fast and we are bad people and we do what we want to do and nobody can tell we and change up a word and change up a name. Because I've seen this government with a habit of changing words and saying it is not the same. An amnesty is now a temporary reprieve. A state of emergency is now a enhanced security measure. A person of interest is now a crime violence producer. They just change these terms and it's all of a sudden something else. So when they had the gun amnesty, it was an amnesty. But that wasn't a gun temporary reprieve. But no, the ticket is a ticket temporary reprieve. The 13 courts that we have, am I correct? 13 traffic courts. Parish. One in Kingston and St. Andrew, which is a traffic court, single act traffic court. The others, which are courts in its total, but have 1 day for traffic court. I'm going to prove mathematically the inability for the government to implement in the next 5 days. If we look in the, 3 days, 3 days. If we look at the number that has unpaid ticket, just one, we're going to talk about the one where we are habitual. Let us say we dash them in the rubbish bin. The 599,000 that have, if 800,000 over 13 courts, you have to have about 60,000 to a court. The government is incapable to do anything with 60,000 people over the next 3 days. Let's say 50% already went in, which is not so, but just for the mathematics. We talk about 30,000 per court. And in some cases, 1 day, the 1 day might not be even a part of the 3 days that is left. That 1 day designated might not, if it's Thursday, the deadline might not catch that 1 day designated. All these people you are saying should face a judge. No, you're saying that in each court, approximately 30,000 people, the judge must see them. For what reason? The judge is not asked to adjudicate on if they were speeding for true. The real adjudication being given to the judge is if they can pay. The judge wasn't trained to analyze that. What evidence do I take to the court to prove my ability to pay or not pay? But this is once again another evidence of a government that is focused on inequity. I see you say, I love when I carry you down the line and then take it to the promised land. There is two types of punishment for a traffic offense. The first, which is the most equitable, or no, the first, which is the most inequitable, is that there's a fine. Why a fine is inequitable? Because we all don't have the same income. So a fine is a % of my income as it relates to the value of its punishment. So if you fine me 20,000 and my income is 30,000, that is a big punishment. The same 20,000 and my income is $1 million. That is of no moment. It's an inequitable method of punishment. The other is you lose points. We all have the same points. The rich man have the same points. The poor man have the same points. That is an equitable punishment because if I speed, I lose the same amount of points if I'm rich or poor, and the influence of it is equal because we have the same amount of points. The government said, we will give you a blipe on one. Which one did they choose to give a blipe on? They give a blipe on the one that affected the people that are wealthy, equal to the people that are poor. And then say, okay then, but who have money people still have to pay. So what we will have is the punishment will be meted out to who can't afford to pay, not who drive bad. Because if you drove bad for $50,000 worth of ticket and you can afford it, you can go free. But if you drive bad for $10,000 worth of ticket and you can't afford it, you have a problem. So if it is that we really wanted to stop the bad drivers on the road, wouldn't the one who take away your driver's license be a more effective method than the one who just say you have to pay? I could just reason. I could reason. If you have one who say you have to go stop drive because you have proven that you are a bad driver, is the one that you are given a reprieve on. But the one where just pay your money, you still have to find the money. Yes. So you're correct. You see, what they don't understand is that there were some people of Caucasian disposition that were marching with Martin Luther King for the blacks. It is not what you are, is how you think. So therefore, I don't understand when you're saying because I can afford it, I shouldn't understand that there are many within a circumstance. Because you have already said that all you have to do is pay. So the man who is still feeling that there is a problem, either he can't get through to the court, or if he gets through to the court, he can't afford it. Now you have said to yourself that the culture of our society must be ignored because January has proven culturally to be the most difficult month for almost all Jamaicans. And so you don't consider that, say, oh, this is a difficult month, so let us give them February or March. You just come without analyzing no cultural aspect, just badness. We are government, and we do as we feel, and we do as we want, without any cultural consideration that even those of middle income this Christmas might be having a difficult chance this January. Everybody talk about it, say, January, why I can't wait till it's done. 90 days, they said. No consideration was made. Yes. But when you look at the facts of life, the first thing is the government cannot implement what they're forcing because you cannot have these numbers of people face the court in that period of time. The government had no consideration for the use of technology. Remember, technology is a big trumpet of this government. The last time the Minister of Finance couldn't pay the teachers and was taking away some money from them in the Christmas, he said the algorithms. What is that? It's technology. The computer never paid them. But they didn't put a system that you can go on the computer and set a date. You have to go down to the court. No algorithms. Because there's no consideration for people, their time and their productivity. And the simple excuse is going to be, oh, they break the law, so they should do it. Lamy, when you talk, I'm sure you tell them that SSL broke the law, and you talk. SSL. Different rules for that company and the taxi man. So what we have is firstly the inability to implement, secondly the non-consideration of the culture, thirdly an exaggeration of the persons being affected and their criminal intent, and all of that come together with no reason why April is not a consideration. Other than what you have said, that we are standing on those who are disabled. When that is based on the last law, not the new law. These tickets are based on what was. And what was 1938. But last year had 488 deaths. The most in our country's history. On these laws that you're implementing. These laws that you're saying, this is what we are protecting people from, prove themselves ineffective. Prove themselves inefficient. And when we came here debating the new bill, we made proposals that have been ignored that could be of more efficient impact. But you see, I asked the question, was the bill being proposed for the revenue function, or was it being proposed for the reduction of road fatalities function? We asked that question. And in truth, this is a thing. Many researchers, Senator Braham, have identified throughout the world, in particular the United States and Europe, where municipalities, you don't get that money, I don't think so, but municipalities would use the traffic ticket to raise money. It's like a sin tax. Is that you get the license? So you don't want them ban. So you're the one who don't want them ban the driver's license. But the sin tax. Now, what the literature says is that the traffic ticket is a no defense sin tax. Because alcohol consumption, there's a defense from the person who makes alcohol. But traffic ticket, there's no defender for that tax. So many entities have used that as a tax. What did we recommend? We say that if the money was collected, used for drivers' education in schools, then over the next 5 to 10 years, we will have all the adults coming out of school being able to drive properly. You said yourself, Senator Allen, that many of our young children learning to drive by observing the taxi man. He had no parent with a car or nothing. And so him driving how him see people drive. We also know that many buy their license. They don't know how to drive. They went to no driving school. Yes, I was using it as an overall, but today we cannot use it as an overall. So many of him or her have no exposure. So if our schools were to and in the United States, that is a central thing. In fact, once we see the vast number of persons now having access to vehicles thanks to the People's National Party's policy of liberalization of motor vehicles, we should have immediately seen it necessary to make all Jamaicans have exposure. Just like how we want everybody to swim. We go further and we said that there should be broad marketing, both of the efficacies of driving well, but also of the increases and the risk and the penalties that will come. That driving advertisement could be funded by the monies collected. Last time I heard they say, I think 124 million was collected over almost 4 months or something like that. The words of thy mouth became the meditation of thy heart, where the Minister of Security said, is a good return on investment. I quote, when he had the electric traffic ticket, he said the amount collected was a good return on investment. Not using reduced accidents, not using reduced deaths. The context of a good return was the funds collected. So what happens is there's clearly a funds deadline, a budgetary deadline, but no consideration for the people's reality and the government's competence. What I hear the leader of the opposition asking for, and his colleagues in the lower house, was not that you should abandon the tickets. Even though Senator Scott Matley, if I had a say, especially for the taximen, I will give them 2 years that if you get no further ticket, you don't pay none. But if you get one, you pay all. Imagine how you'd have seen them drive. Them would have drive nice and sweet. Because with immediate effect, I see what is going on. you drive nice and sweet. Because if you get one ticket in 2 years, immediately, all becomes due. Immediately. But if you get none, we will forgive you. You see, because I believe that you will get, like, it's a suspended sentence. You catch more fly with honey than vinegar. I believe that they should be treated like any other business who gets consideration and concessions as a business. I have seen it in the tourism sector, I've seen it in the manufacturing sector, I've seen it in the farming sector, where businesses are treated in a way that they continue to operate, not that they die. And so none of these things were considered because the revenue motive was the central and key motive. On that same basis, I am sure when they saw some breaches, they said, let a business continue and repair those breaches. Why are the taxi men being treated differently? Senator Graham, I heard the Minister of Finance. He says, this government is not into price setting. Senator Scott Matley, you remember that? When they were asked about the bank fees. And they said, we don't set prices. The market set prices. The taxi people don't get the same treatment. The government set how much they can charge. So the banks, they don't set for them. But the taxi people are asked to subsidize the society with their fare. I know some things they don't understand. So I can carry further. Most taxis are asked to charge the same fare as the JUTC. The JUTC has to be subsidized by government up to sometimes $5 billion. Because the JUTC is incapable to function profitably with the fares that they're being asked to charge. The taxi people being asked to charge the same fares get no subsidy from the government, so therefore they have to be subsidizing themselves and by extension subsidizing the patrons that use those taxis. Indeed, it has been stated that the reason for setting a price for transportation, public transportation, is for the affordability of public transportation by persons who are most in need of public transportation. So, in essence, the taxis are being asked as a private business to subsidize. One of the fundamental costs of the often movement of the taxi is tickets. It's almost automatic for those who drive enough that they'll get more than those who drive a little bit. It's a mathematical probability. It don't mean that we don't see some of them disgusting. You know. Every one of us costs taxi in this house. But also we know the value of what they do. Not the way they do it, but their transportation of people. So if they're saying that when we look at our realities, we have members with 1 ticket, members with 2, some with 11, some with 500 who should never. The man with 500, you're telling me, he's going to come and just pay for the 500 and go back with the same license? But that's what is being proposed here. There are also some conversations that need to be had because there's some confusion. I think in the lower house, our side, the 14, was able to convince you that if I paid my ticket in the period 2018 to 2022, and I get my demerits, then those demerits should also be considered. Because having already paid, these demerits were applied. Are we saying that those who did what they were supposed to do, of paying on time, will retain those demerits? I think that you said that is being changed. But if that is not the case, I hope it is being changed. Because the man who was speeding, paid his ticket on time, he's not being treated equally as the man who delayed payment for his tickets. Secondly, are we saying that everybody that get a date between now and the 31st will be treated equally? Or is it everybody that faced the judge between now and the 31st. Leader of the government business, I am asking the question. I love to have an answer when you close. Are we saying that everyone who gets a date before the 31st, because I'm hearing people getting date April, March, all over. So once you get a date, regardless of when you face the judge, this applies to you? So only who face the judge before the 31st? Oh, no, you said no to both, so I kind of don't know. Okay. I'm going to ask a question again for the purpose of Senator Campbell Rodriguez, who is looking like she has some tickets over there. You look a little bit coy over there, like you have a few tickets.
She don't drive.
You don't drive, you see that? Okay, Senator Brea. I'm asking a question because a date has been set, the 31st of January. But also, it has been proposed to people, go and set a date. If I set a date before the 31st, and as I've highlighted, it's 60,000 people to go in front of the judge. 50% is 30,000. That cannot be facilitated in the next 3 days. And we have evidence of people getting dates up to April and May, March. Is this bill applicable to those who set the date? Get a date? Or those who face a judge? If it is for those who face the judge, then this don't make any sense at all. Less than 2% of the people will be able to face a judge between now and the 31st. If it is for those who set a date, then why it is that we're putting them through the hassle of having to go down to the court instead of going online and have some algorithm, use some mathematical methodology and say that you can set a date and a time?
I'm not contesting this, so
yes. Now, I wasn't able to make this proposal before because I never saw this bill till today. If it was out there from the 6th of December like Floyd, I could have proposed long time. But it's only today it come because it is chaka chaka. I cannot believe that after they foul up with the bill and collecting money that the court said they should not be collected and having to rush here and do all kind of things to make it go through.
that's July 21.
July 21. We are here now with something unfinished and nonsensical. I cannot believe that that is so. The second question I'm asking Senator Brea is that person A and person B got a ticket 2019 January 4th. Person A pays their ticket on time, but having paid, lost points. Person B still have their ticket and will seek to pay it Monday. The bill suggests that person B will not lose points. Should the bill not also consider, therefore, person A that had already lost points? Because person A acted appropriately. And the minister is suggesting that this is to punish those who act inappropriately. But in this case, it's punishing those who acted appropriately. So this bill is therefore ignoring the right doer if it doesn't equally just have a start over for all that period, absorb those points as well, and leave it only to the payments that are being made. So in essence, Mr. President, I find that the government, for no reason other than revenue, because the only logic is revenue. The only logic is the revenue motive, which have a deadline for March for the budget. The only logic is that. Cannot implement what they're putting forward impossible to implement. Inefficient to implement because you're now using up the courts and using up judges. I hear they say, oh, no, we have night courts. So we have new judges that never used to exist. Yes. We have additional judges for this issue. Same amount of judges. We have been talking about courts backlog. You were at Ministry of Security. You were talking about courts backlog for a very long time. Okay. That deals with this one. That is nonsensical. We're asking judges to deliberate only on the affordability and the ability to pay, which they're not trained to do. We're using ability to pay as a source of punishment. And what is the punishment if you can't pay immediately? Have that been considered? Is it prison? Am I understanding well, lawyers in the house? So if you cannot pay your fine, it's 30 days. Maybe 10. Depending on the offense. But prison is a probability if you can't pay the fine. Okay, that's a penalty for every fine offense. So somebody in St. Anne might end up in Ochi prison? No. We have to consider that. We have to consider what was we saw on video. A man being beaten half to death because our prisons are already overcrowded. Our prisons are already uncontrollable. And I'm going to risk somebody's 19-year-old who just can't pay. Not a murderer, just can't pay today.
Senator Crawford, the law says, if you are imposing a fine, there must be an alternative. That is what the law says. So it's not anything particular. So if they said $100, you have to have an alternative prison sentence.
What I'm saying, sir, this bill is silent on the alternative. Yes, no, I'm saying this here. All right, let me educate you. No, yeah, I am telling the citizens. But I'm also telling the government that they could have put a clause in this bill that there is community service as an alternative to payment. That could have been in this bill. So while it is, hold on, I'm going to show you the hypocrisy of this conversation. Why you couldn't put it in this bill? Because you like to instruct judges what to do. You come in now for say minimum this and minimum that. So you don't like to leave judges to say what they want to say. You know that we have 700,000 people. If 10% of them are incapable to pay, it's 70,000 people. That 70,000 people have the probability of jail. And we have seen in recent times what jail means. Mario Dean went in for a spliff.
That's the Barnett Street one.
He came out dead. We don't want to hear 2 months down the line. John Brown went in for tail light. And he came out dead. All these considerations, we believe. Yeah, but coming in a way, I say. All these considerations suggest that it would be reasonable of a government to extend the time to April 31st, I think, as the leader, 30th, as the leader of opposition has suggested. Because your competence, our culture, and our realities suggest that the 31st of January is unreasonable. With that, Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you very much for that extended presentation. You notice that you didn't get a notice that your time was completed, Mr. Luton. Senator Crawford, thank you very much. Senator Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I join with you for the second time to wish everybody Happy New Year. I've been done it
before on some other
earlier.
occasion.
Mr. President, I just wanted to say a few things about I know that this bill is before us, and the bill really precipitates the major bill, which is coming into effect at another few days. I look forward to the bill coming into effect, Mr. President, and I believe that the government ought to recall the need, and I know that they have it and will do it, to advise the public as to the new fines and the new offenses. I also, Mr. President, ask the NWA to bear in mind the issues that we have with street signage, because there are some persons who genuinely don't know that this is a one-way. For example, they don't come from the area, but there are no signage. And I'm hoping that that will have some effect and it will be done. But, Mr. President, there's an area that I would like careful consideration to be given. I am hoping that the results of this new legislation will drastically reduce road accidents. But we will have some road accidents, and we have been over 400 people, or between 300 to 400 people, have been killed per year for the last couple of years. And I want to remind us of the effect of these injury and death. The death, Mr. President, usually of young people, working people sometimes, breadwinners, mothers or fathers, often is devastating to families. Secondly, Mr. President, those who are chronically injured. Mr. President, I always tell the story of a friend of mine in our early days who get a job as a sideman on a truck. He was 19 years old. The truck, somewhere in Mavis Bank, went over a precipice and his neck was broken. I mean, this is a true, literal story. He didn't die. His mother, who sell in the market and had to go to hustle daily, was now saddled with the responsibility to maintain this crippled boy, as they called him at the time. I just would like you to think about what that is. The community rallied around, diaper, and so on. Our church did the best that they can, but there was no way she could take care of that young man. No way. So the point I'm making is that the road carnage creates a certain class of persons who are injured and the family don't have the resources to treat with them. Similarly, when they die, or even because they have become incapacitated, their children often suffer serious fallout, consequence, and the loss of this family member. The same thing happened to people who are murdered as well, but we're not talking about them, Mr. President. But I think that the society needs to recognize that this is a group of persons that are disadvantaged because of our ways of driving and our indiscipline, and that we ought to give them special attention, and I don't know, identify them and give them special attention when budget time comes. And I personally today make an appeal on behalf of those persons. As we implement the bill, we hope that the numbers will go down, but there is a considerable amount of persons who I believe, from my own knowledge, fall into this category and are suffering. So, Mr. President, I do support the coming into effect of the bill. This two part of it here will pass, hopefully, and we will move into it smoothly, and I trust that my urging will bear some fruit. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bram. Senator Lambert-Brown.
Thank you, President. Let me just state for the record, President, that had I heard the motion to suspend the standing order to debate this bill today, I'd have opposed it. I'd have opposed it because the bill was passed yesterday in the other place, rushed here, and the standing order require us to be given time unless suspended. I recall when we debated the Road Traffic Act before, and we spoke about the delay in implementing the regulations, the minister indicated that the process was extremely technical, requiring layers of consultation with ministries and departments. And then she ended by saying, this is what is causing the delay. It is extremely complex. So it is a complex piece of legislation that we are given several hours to debate and review. And Senator Crawford explained how complex it is. Let's bear in mind, President, that when the ticketing system started, the ticketing system was supposed to work as follows, Senator Leslie Campbell. You get a ticket for an offense. You have 21 days to visit the tax office and pay. If you are not challenging, if you don't pay in those 21 days, there's a date on which you are to attend the court. So, for example, President, you're driving on the North-South Highway, and they stop you at Unity Valley. You're supposed to go to court in Claremont, not even Wachi, on the street. If you don't go to court, the system requires that a summons be issued for you. That's how it was supposed to work. I don't know what percentage of tickets issued and not paid at the tax office received a summons. Eh? No. Receive a summons. The court issue a summons or a warrant for you. Well, let's put it this way. A warrant ought to be issued for you for not coming to court. A warrant. What percentage of these people a warrant was issued for? So now we get into a situation where a man has 500 tickets, 1,000 tickets sent to Samuda. Not a single warrant issued in accordance with the system. And if that man turn up now, he has to go give them his email address for them to go look for the 1,000 tickets and get back to him. In fact, if he didn't turn up, all would be well because the ticket would be under some dusty paper in the court office, and the court staff would not have the time to address that. In other words, Senator Sinclair, the system failed. the system failed. And so, Senator Ransford, you would help me best with this. I believe when I looked it up last night, it was Mark 2, verse 22. I can ask Damion about that, because I never go to Sunday school. I'm going to regular school. But you could tell me what Mark 2, verse 22 says. Thou shalt not put new wine into old wineskin. Lest, President, both the wine and the wineskin be lost. It is you I should have come to, not Ronnie. What we're doing now, what we're doing now is akin to putting the 1938 Act into the 2018 Act. In other words, essentially, we're trying to put new wine into old wineskin. And that's what all of this is about. We're trying to bring all those 1938 breaches into the new